Courtney Wilson reporting there from Fernvale near Brisbane. Well, in this age of the selfie, people portray themselves in all sorts of places and all sorts of ways, but rarely do they portray themselves as a long-dead saint. Well, that's what Melbourne artist Warren Crossett did for a painting titled Self-Portrait after St Jerome Flanders. And saintliness, it seems, pays big time in painting, for Warren Crossett's work has today been announced as the winner of the world's richest art prize, the Moran National Portrait Prize. And Warren joins me now in the studio. Warren Crossett, congratulations.
Thank you.
Why did you portray yourself after St Jerome, this highly learned and bookish saint from the 4th century?
Well, I took a trip to the National Gallery, which I do from time to time. And yeah, I was sort of walking through and I came upon a painting, and there's no title to it, you know, apart from St Jerome, but there's no artist of any type. So Flanders is just like a general term for the area. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was just looking at the theme in the painting and what was actually taking place in it. And I didn't really research St Jerome too much, so I don't know too much about that. But I do know about the symbols that were in the painting and how to sort of reinterpret them in a more modern way. Okay, like what? As we look at your work here, what are some of the symbols? Well, the symbols, you've got the extinguished candle there. Yes. In the corner. You've got me pointing, which is actually in the first version, the original. So I'm still doing that, but he was pointing to a skull. So I didn't do a skull. I've actually got a letter, which is there. And if you look very carefully, which is probably too hard to do from that size, on the postage stamp there is a skull on that. So I've invented a little sort of stamp in there, and there's various symbols in the background as well, parts of the temple and so on. We'll have to look more carefully, and for those of us who can see the exhibition, look at it close up in the flesh, look for symbols. Yes. Now, at one point, St Jerome, partly the inspiration for this painting, he exiled himself to a life of austerity and solitude, as he said, with no other company but scorpions and wild beasts. Sort of sounds like the life of an artist in Australia, really, doesn't it? It could be interpreted that way, yes. Should we look at that symbol as well in there, or? I wasn't necessarily going for that, but you know, maybe there's some aspect of that in there too. What are the blessings and curses of doing a self-portrait? The blessings is that I'm the critic, so I get to say, you know, if it's looking right or wrong, or if I'm not happy, if my nose is too big or anything like that. And yeah, I think there's really a drawback, because when I do paint a picture, it's more from, you know, the perspective of looking at it as a subject, much in the way as a landscape or something like that. So, you know, don't really think about it too much. It's not an exercise in vanity or anything like that. Now, until now, you've probably been better known as a children's book illustrator. That's right. In fact, many a parent, I'm sure, has read and shown their kids, "This is mud." Yes. Yeah. They're your pictures in that. Yep. Where are the same ideas in something like that, as simple as "This is mud," or deceptively simple, compared with a fairly complex painting like the one you've done here? Well, is there crossover? Not really, not for that type of book. That type of book was quite cartoonish. So, you know, I'm just swapping, you know, technique and style completely. But a lot of my other sort of work is more realistic. Yeah, so I did a book called The Sound of the Sea as well. That was a little bit more realistic, a very serious topic. But yeah, illustration and art are a little bit separate. I have, for the last year or two, had a strong desire to kind of really push into the art scene and sort of get into that, and rather than have a deadline, I can be a little bit more in control of how things take place. So, well, it doesn't get much bigger than this. You entered the Moran National Portrait Prize, the nation's richest portrait prize, the world's richest art prizes. How often have you entered art prizes before, and how did you rate your chances? Okay, well, when I was a young teenager, I used to exhibit in some Rotary Club shows and things like that. But then I stopped doing that. I moved into illustration. So this is the first competition, as far as art is concerned, that I've entered. The first? The first. And number one. Wow, you walk away a winner, and
with $150,000 first prize.
Yes.
Not bad. What are you going to do with that money?
I'll have to think very carefully. I'm not exactly sure yet.
Is that right?
Yeah.
In this age, as I said at the start, of the incessant selfie, everyone's taking photos of themselves on their mobile phones. They're snapping self-portraits left, right and centre. What do you reckon the relevance and the potency, the power is of a more considered self-portrait such as this one?
It depends. Like, you can have a general self-portrait where there's not really a concept or a narrative in it. For those, in some ways, it is almost like an exotic selfie, I suppose you'd say. But for what I did, I really wanted a narrative to kind of weave through the whole theme, and yeah.
And as we can all see there, it has worked magnificently for you, and certainly did in the eyes of the judges as well. Warren Crossett, the winner of this year's Doug Moran National Portrait Prize. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You look saintly in both the picture and in the flesh. Lovely to meet you.
And then you.